Happening in the UK, let's now shift our attention over to the US. All eyes have been on the third day of public impeachment hearings against US President Donald Trump. It was for the first time that witnesses who heard the Trump-Zelensky controversial phone call testified publicly. First was Lieutenant Colonel Alexander S. Vindman, the top Ukraine expert at the White House. Vindman said he immediately reported Trump's Ukraine call to White House lawyers out of a sense of duty because the conversation was improper. He feared it could have implications on the country's national security.
I was concerned by the call. What I heard was inappropriate, and I reported my concerns to Mr. Eisenberg. It is improper for the President of the United States to demand a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen and a political opponent. I was also clear that if Ukraine pursued an investigation, it was also clear that if Ukraine pursued an investigation into the 2016 elections, the Bidens and Burisma, it would be interpreted as a partisan play. This would undoubtedly result in Ukraine losing bipartisan support, undermining U.S. national security, and advancing Russia's strategic objectives in the region.
The next one was Jennifer Williams, a foreign policy advisor to Vice President Mike Pence. She testified that the call did not follow the ordinary format for conversations between two world leaders, which was unusual. Williams and Vindman became the first current White House officials to testify.
Both please rise and raise your right hand. I will begin by swearing you in.
July 25th phone call unusual because, in contrast to other presidential calls I had observed, it involved discussion of what appeared to be a domestic political matter.
The second set of witnesses were former U.S. National Security Council official Timothy Morrison and the former U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker. Volker was a witness requested by the Republicans. He said that he failed to equate discussions of the gas company Burisma with 2020 presidential candidate Joe Biden. He did not realize that the two were linked.
I did not understand that others believed that any investigation of the Ukrainian company Burisma, which had a history of accusations of corruption, was tantamount to investigating Vice President Biden. I drew a sharp distinction between the two. In hindsight, I now understand that others saw the idea of investigating possible corruption involving the Ukrainian company Burisma as equivalent to investigating former Vice President Biden. I saw them as very different, the former being appropriate and unremarkable, the latter being unacceptable.
Meanwhile, Morrison said that he had feared the consequences of the phone conversation. He also said that he resigned from the NSC out of his own will.
As I stated during my deposition, I feared at the time of the call on July 25th how its disclosure would play in Washington's political climate. My fears have been realized. I understand the gravity of these proceedings, but I beg you not to lose sight of the military conflict underway in eastern Ukraine today, the ongoing illegal occupation of Crimea, and the importance of reform of Ukraine's politics and economy.
As the hearings continue, the U.S. President has said that they were quote-unquote a disgrace. He also said he had no idea who Vindman was. Let's listen in.
Wealthier. Vindman, I watched him for a little while this morning, and I think I'm going to let people make their own determination. But I don't know Vindman. I never heard of him. I don't know any of these people other than I have seen one or two a couple of times. They're ambassadors. But these are names that are taught, like Taylor, like Kent with a nice bow tie, wonderful bow tie. Maybe I'll get one for myself someday. I don't know who Kent is. I don't know who Taylor is. All these people are talking about, they heard a conversation of another conversation that was had by the president. What's going on is a disgrace, and it's an embarrassment to our nation.
And so these public impeachment hearings in the United States have been garnering much public attention. Millions of Americans have been watching President Donald Trump's impeachment inquiry hearings. And our next report from Los Angeles shows that some voters support the process and others agree with Trump that it's politically motivated. Let's have a look.
At issue in hearings Wednesday and Friday, whether Trump made military aid to Ukraine contingent on a renewed investigation into the business dealings of the son of his political rival, Democrat Joe Biden. Trump has called the investigation a witch hunt.
Nobody's seen anything like it. In the history of our country, there has never been a disgrace like what's going on right now. So you know what?
A man from Seattle agrees.
No, I think it's ridiculous, and I think it hurts the country. It makes people distrust the media, distrust the politicians.
A critic of Trump thinks the hearings are needed. He came from California to Washington to witness them.
We have to show our support for democratic values and the values of America.
Students at the University of Southern California watched on television, with millions around the country.
As a new voter this year, I'm trying to make an effort to be a little bit more informed about how the electoral process works, and especially how this impeachment process will play into the election next year.
For some, it's political drama.
I love a good court hearing, so that's fun to watch.
For others, a chance to separate fact from emotion.
So I'm trying to really focus on the evidence being presented and the testimonies and not looking at it from an emotive standpoint.
Half of Americans support the inquiry. More than 40% oppose it. This is the third impeachment process one couple has lived through.
We've been around since Watergate.
We didn't come for Nixon. We didn't come for Clinton. We're here. We should come and see this. While we may not get in, it's good to try.
Removing a president from office requires the House to pass articles of impeachment and conviction in the Senate, which is unlikely given the Republican majority in the upper house. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.